Welcome to another edition of Agency Scaling Secrets. I'm Solomon Timothy. Let's get into today's question, and that is, how do I make my agency more profitable? This is an amazing question. Let's dive in. Did you know that there are more unprofitable agencies than there are profitable agencies? Digital marketing is a very profitable business. Why aren't more people profitable? And the reason is it's a complex business. In fact, we should know because we're in the business of scaling other agencies, and we have firsthand information on what are the biggest struggles that agency owners have, right? In fact, the reason why we exist is to make our agency partners more scalable and more profitable. This has to be one of the biggest questions that agency owners are going to face in their early stages when they're getting going and maybe they're creating some real good cash flow. And even further down, maybe towards the end of their agency life and they want to get rid of it, profitability is always going to be a question. Sometimes maybe you don't have enough experience running a business to know certain numbers and metrics that you need to measure. But in many cases, if you're in the negative, there's something wrong with the agency pricing model, the product model, who you're serving. There's a lot of challenges. So let's dive in. I'm gonna give you some simple items for you to consider, and that's gonna help you out tremendously if profitability is your number one concern. The first thing I want you to think about, and these are the components that we've found in highly profitable agencies, right? So number one is, from that sales conversation itself, giving a proposal that are based on accurate estimates, right? So if a client says, I need X, Y, and Z, and I don't care what those X, Y, and Z might be, you as an agency have to give them a proposal. They have to know what it's going to cost. And for them to know what it's going to cost, you need to know what it's going to cost. And this is where you get into trouble, is that most agency owners can't calculate their expenses, because our expenses are tied to people and time. And if you don't have a pretty good handle on time and people and time and everything else, guess what? You're going to run into some inaccurate estimates. And then what happens is you're setting up yourself already for failure. I'm gonna use an example. You estimated $1,000 to get something done, and it ended up costing you $1,500. But what if the customer's only paying you $1,500? You basically have done that job at cost. Just like a construction company, time and material, you really have to get a better handle on projecting your expenses so that you can give accurate estimates. Now, it's not really good to give somebody a $10,000 estimate because you're so bad at accurately, projecting your cost. You want to be realistic, because you can't just charge $20,000 when it's really a $2,500 product. You're not going to get the customer to pay just because of our inability to accurately estimate. So the first step that I would say in your case, if you're struggling with generating positive cash flow, I'm not talking about you don't have any money because you spent all the money back in marketing. I'm talking about your gross margin, right? Not your net margin. Your gross margin, if it's not there, it's because of a couple of factors. One of it being the inability to create accurate estimates. Think about that a little bit more. Of course, you can always reach out to us to figure out cost estimates and how you should go about it. But I'm gonna give you some tips here so that you can start figuring out where you might be going wrong. All right, so the second step is having a better control over the cost. What do I mean by having better control? So let's say you have direct expenses. Let's say you have labor or somebody that you're paying to get the job done. How controllable is that cost, right? So sometimes if you have a consultant, they bill by the hour. And that means that hourly clock is gonna keep running if you don't tell them to stop, right? So somebody bills you $50 an hour. The first week they charge you for 10 hours, but the second week they charge you for 50 hours. Now, this is what I mean by cost control is not there, right? You now have no idea. They're charging you based on what the customers have asked. So the consultant says, great, I'll do whatever you say, customer, and go ahead and bills you as the agency owner, but the client does not know that this is a 50-hour project. They thought it was a 5-hour project. So you're now in the middle of a situation. You have somebody you need to pay, but the customer hasn't really agreed to the terms. This happens all the time in the agency space. You may have really amazing people that you're working with. However, you need to make sure that the way that they're gonna bill and the way the customer is gonna pay you are aligned so that you can have better cost control. Now, this happens in the same way. If you had full-time employees or contractors, you may have to pay overtime, or you may have to pay for something else, then you didn't really accurately measure that. Let me tell you how Clickx helps agency owners in getting better cost control. So we have fixed prices for our products, right? So if you bought a product that was $1,000, I'm gonna give you again $1,000 round figure example here. It can take us 50 hours, but we don't bill our partners any more than the fixed hours that we billed for that project, right? So if that product has a fixed $1,000, you're not gonna get an extra charge from us like that consultant under any circumstances. And the reason why we do that is we want to make sure that if our partners, based on our cost and our prices, are all fixed, we don't custom quote any projects. So because of the fixed pricing nature, we want to make sure that our partners are going to build in enough margins and they're not going to have any unpredictability in their profit, right? You can't be like, hey, I didn't know that I was going to be charged twice, and so I now have to go to my customer and charge twice, and my customer is not going to be willing to pay anything more than whatever they agreed on. So the agency takes a loss again. It's terrible for the agency and again runs into profitability issues. So if you're thinking about profitability, you got to work with partners that are going to be able to do things on fixed prices. So if our agencies are charging $2,000 for the same product that we charge them $1,000, they're automatically built into a 50% margin. Now in the agency space, that's unheard of. They cannot get 50% margins if you have direct labor and all the things that we're talking about. And the reason behind why we're charging a fixed fee is because of that very thing. We want our agency partners to know that if they charge more than whatever it is our fees on our portal, they're automatically going to be profitable. All right? That's really, really important to us. We would not want you to be in this business if it's not to generate profit for yourself. Now, the third one is probably the one that everyone in this space understands. Now, there's more things that you can do to assure that you're going to be in the profit, but for the purposes of this video, I want to make sure I keep things as simple as possible. The last one is scope creep. Now, it's not the customer's fault. It's not the agency's fault. Once you start working on something, the client realizes immediately, look, I didn't want 5 landing pages. We really meant to have 50 because we just realized that we need all these other landing pages. So now as the agency, you have a choice. Are you gonna do 50 and charge for 5? Or are you gonna say, hey, we gotta take a quick break here. We estimated 5 and we gave you price for 5. We have the resources to get the 5 done, but 50 is not exactly in the budget. If you're building a 3-bedroom house, but after the construction start, you're not gonna say, look, you know, I like to bring my family members. I want my grandma to live with me. So is it possible that we can make 6 bedrooms happen with the budget of the 3-bedroom house, you know, all in? Unfortunately, the builder is going to say, I don't have any room in this because I'm looking at the blueprint. You can't even expand any of this. So technically, either you're going to do the 3-bedroom or we're going to stop right now, right? And that's exactly what I would like our agency partners to understand. Now, we love our customers, and over-servicing is what a lot of agencies do, but over-servicing is at the expense of, again, profitability, right? So if you're going to start doing 45 more landing pages, you're going to have to pay your labor and time and all those things. You're going to get into some serious trouble, and you're also setting the wrong expectation for future project with that customer. So think about that. How are you going to manage scope creep? Is there something in the contract that says, hey, look, at some point we decide that you need 10 times more resources. We need to be able to have a conversation to be able to improve the pricing, right? So that we can both be profitable. So these 3 things really affect the bottom line. It's not always the customer's fault. Things change in the middle of a project, right? You uncover a huge problem. If you're trying to flip homes, you open up the kitchen, you realize there's a whole lot of things that you need to fix and now migrate. You took a wall off, now you got to spend a lot of time. You've probably seen enough TV shows where you have costs that you really didn't know that you're going to actually go through. So you got to leave some room for buffer, right? So you don't know what's going to happen. So number 2, it's the cost control. How are you paying out for the items that you have, and do you have some control over that cost as it relates to this particular customer? And if you have those things, you should be able to give accurate pricing estimates. And there's nothing more exciting than getting a project done on time, on budget, right? On time, on budget. There's nothing more exciting in the agency world than making sure you've promised to launch something on a certain day and we did it without spending, extra 50 hours. So hopefully this video gives you a lot of insight into staying out of red and being in the black as an agency owner. There's nothing more exciting about building an agency that's scalable and profitable and giving you the time back that you so desire in building a business. But however, most agency owners are spending 14, 15 hours a day working and sometimes not even getting paid for the time that they put in for their clients and whatever else. So hopefully you found some value in this video. If you're struggling and unprofitable, trying to scale an agency, you've spent hours, maybe years building, look, reach out to one of our consultants. We have a lot of resources to help agencies create a business that are scalable and sustainable, and also be something that's going to be profitable. So if you have more questions, reach out to one of our consultants. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment. What else should agency owners focus on when building a scalable agency? We'd love to have a follow-up. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.